Welcome back to our series on the 5 steps for reading success. I am diving deep into these topics for you so that you can teach your child to read at home without it feeling overwhelming or complicated. I want you to know that you can absolutely do this. We are going step by step on these 5 steps so that you can feel like, yes, I can do this. We've already covered the first 2 steps. We talked about oral language and we've talked about phonological and phonemic awareness. If you haven't checked out those episodes, make sure you scroll back so that you can grab that information. And if you are ready for step number 3, today we are going to be talking about letter knowledge. Funny that most people start with letter knowledge, but we're not starting with letter knowledge until the 3rd step. So make sure you check out those first 2 steps before you dive into letter knowledge. In case you're new here, my name is Erin. I'm from littleslovelearning.com. I'm a former classroom teacher, and now I spend my time helping parents teach their children to read correctly and effectively based on the science of reading. If you haven't grabbed this freebie yet, the 5 steps for reading success, please make sure you do. The link is down below. It's going to give you the overview of these 5 steps, but it's also going to dive deep into each one, giving you freebies and also links to other resources so that you can learn more about these areas. So make sure that you scroll back so you can check out the first 2 steps. And now let's dive into step number 3, letter knowledge. Like I mentioned, most people start with letter knowledge when they want to teach their child to read. They just assume, okay, in order for my child to read, they need to know their letters and sounds. That is true, but there's so much more information that they need to know about letters. It goes way beyond memorizing the ABCs or singing the ABC song. Let's take a step back for a minute. We as humans have been speaking way longer than we've been reading and writing. So our brains are wired for speech and language, but they're not wired for reading and writing. So what we as humans did, we decided to take our speech sounds and match them to a printed letter in order for us to be able to read and write. It's a totally man-made human invention. It's not something that our brains are evolved to do. And so because we took our speech sounds and decided to match them to letters, and that's what we determined was reading, we need our children to start with the speech sounds. That's why we start with oral language and phonological and phonemic awareness. Those first 2 steps on this path to reading success don't require any letters. So again, if you haven't seen those episodes, scroll back and make sure that you get that information. Once our children understand that speech comes first, then we can talk to them about the letters. Now, we have about 44 speech sounds in English, but we only have 26 letters. That's what makes it so confusing. So our children are going to eventually learn how to spell all the 44 different sounds, but we start with the basic 26 letters of the alphabet. We know that some letters can spell more than one sound. For example, the letter G, it can spell the G sound or it can spell the J sound, depending on what letter comes after it. But just for our purposes, when we're teaching preschoolers, kindergartners, we are starting with just the most common sound, the first sound of our 26 letters. So that's where we're going to start today. We want them to understand the alphabetic principle is that we have these speech sounds and we use these letters to spell those sounds, and we'll start with just the 26 letters. Let me share some tips with you on the best ways to introduce letters and sounds to your little one. So, number 1, you are going to introduce the letter name and the letter sound together. There are different schools of thought on this. Some people start with the names. Some people only start with the sounds. I am of the opinion that names and sounds together makes the most sense. Just like when we teach our children about farm animals and we say, this is a sheep. A sheep says, bah. They know that the name of the animal is a sheep, but the sound that the animal makes is bah. It's similar with letters. We want them to know the name of the letter and the sound that the letter spells. So I said that a little bit differently. I didn't say the sound that the letter makes because letters don't make sounds. Again, that goes back to we as humans speak and then we match those speech sounds to printed letters. So I like to use the terminology, this is the letter, this letter spells this sound. Other people might disagree with me, and that's totally fine, but I think it's important that our kids know that speech came first, and I'm just using that letter to spell the sound. But again, the letter and the sound should be taught together. So if I were to be teaching this letter, letter A, I would start with the sound and I would say, I'm going to make this sound and we're going to talk about what letter spells that sound. You ready? Look at my mouth. Ah. Do you see how big my mouth is? Ah. Nothing's blocking the air from coming out. This is a vowel sound because vowel sounds, that means that there is nothing blocking the air from coming out. Ah. Can you make that sound? And then I would show them, okay, we want to talk about the letter that spells that sound. So anytime we hear that sound in a word, ah, we're going to spell it with the letter A. Then we're going to talk about the name of the letter. And of course, we're going to talk about the shape of the letter and how to form it because handwriting is crucial as well. Now that takes me actually to tip number 2. We're going to teach the uppercase and lowercase together. So as you can see on this card, I have the uppercase A and the lowercase a together. I want them to associate the name A with the shape of uppercase and lowercase and the sound ah. And I'm going to talk about how to form that sound in my mouth. That is all very important. Now, I'm also going to make sure that when I am talking about the sound ah, I'm talking about words that begin with that sound or that sound is in the middle if your child is ready for a little bit more complex and a challenge. So I like to use animals personally. I have these animal alphabet cards. I have an animal that goes along with each letter of the alphabet, including the digraphs, which are when 2 letters represent one sound. And I use these animals to teach about letters and sounds. So not only have I talked about the way my mouth is formed, the sound of the letter, and then of course the way the letter looks uppercase and lowercase, I also have an animal keyword, alligator. That's what I use, and I like to make it multisensory by making sure that I have an action that goes along with that. That actually is part of one of our tips too, make it multisensory down here. I like to have a movement for each of our letters. And I also have them when they're practicing writing their letters using some sort of multisensory component, Play-Doh or magic sand or something to make it multisensory. But let's go back to this. The sound is ah. The letter is A. The animal is alligator. Let's do our sign for alligator. Now in sign language, alligator looks like this. Alligator. You're going to take your 2 hands and open and close them as if they are the jaws of the alligator. Alligator. I think these motions really help kids to solidify the sound, the name of the letter, and the action is going to help them alligator, help them remember what the sound is as well. So we want all of it tied together when we are teaching the letters. Now, if we go back to our tips, I skipped one, but I'm going to go back to it. Don't follow letter of the week. Letter of the week was a very popular way to introduce letters a while ago, and it wasn't based on any research. It was just an easy way for teachers to keep their curriculum organized. This is week A. We're going to talk about the letter A, the sound A. We're going to do lots of A activities, and the next week we're going to do letter B. It seems like it would make sense, but what teachers don't realize is that it is way too slow. Our kids need it to be faster. And even if they don't master all of their 26 letters the first time, if you go faster, you can actually repeat the cycle again and again. So you can practice the letters over and over and over again, and you're doing it in a much faster way. You're doing a lot more review. Instead of having one whole week for one letter, and then the next week, one whole week for another letter, it's just too slow. And that's what research is showing us, that we don't want to do letter of the week. Now, the other problem is that when we're focusing just on one letter, our kids don't have another letter to compare it to. It's easier for them to start remembering letters when they have more letters that they can compare the sounds and the way they look and the different words that start with those sounds. So we actually want them to be constantly reviewing the letters that they've already been taught, and we can do more review of those letters as we teach them more quickly. So it's recommended to do a letter a day, or at least 3 or 4 letters in a week, so that your child is moving more quickly through the alphabet. And then I have one more tip on here of how to teach the alphabet, and that is to learn through play. That is the biggest pushback I get when I talk about teaching the alphabet, especially before kindergarten. I really believe that all kids should be entering kindergarten knowing their letters and sounds. Even if they don't know all of them, we should have been working on them in preschool and pre-K, because if they don't know their letters and sounds and we've been working on them, that is a red flag for us, because students who are diagnosed with dyslexia later in school, we can look back and see that they struggled learning their letters and sounds in preschool and pre-K. That's actually one of the red flags. So if we are working on letters and sounds in preschool or pre-K, most of our students are going to pick it up very quickly. And if your child is not, and you're being consistent about practice, that could be a red flag that you can bring up to your child's teacher and get them intervention right away. But again, we don't have to do this in a boring way. I'm not talking about just drilling flashcards. I'm not talking about sitting down with worksheets. I'm talking about learning through play. That's why my last tip is about learning through play, making sure that you are making learning letters fun. You're going on scavenger hunts. You're using sensory bins. You are using movement and having your child jump from letter to letter because you put letters on the ground. That's why we use the animal actions. When we are doing the action for letter A, alligator, we are getting their whole body involved, making it multisensory, making it fun. And that is going to help your child learn their letters so much faster. It's going to stick in their brain so much more easily when we're incorporating their whole brain, their whole body, and making it fun. So we don't want to teach one letter a week to our little ones. That is true. Another thing we don't want to do is go in ABC order. Research has not given us the best order to teach letters in. There are different ways that we can introduce letters, but we know that alphabetical order really doesn't make the most sense. I have an order that I like to use. It might be different from the order that you like to use, but I would be happy to share it with you. This is what I use with my students and what I teach parents to use with their kids. So I like to start with the two vowels, O and A, and I like to compare them so we can talk about how they're formed in our mouth. We can start hearing the differences. Nothing blocks those sounds, and kids are usually able to make those sounds very easily. Not only that, but lowercase o and lowercase a are formed in the same way by starting with the magic C shape and then changing it into an O or an A. So I like that continuity when it comes to handwriting. Then I add on D and G, and I do that because we can blend the vowel into the consonant and start blending right away. So we could blend O and D, odd, odd, or A and G, ag, ag. And those are not real words, and that's okay, but we are practicing that oral blending, and then we can practice reading the letters and blending those sounds together, and those are the building blocks of reading. So those are the first four letters I like to start with. And you can see I have those all in the same week. Again, we want to do a letter a day or at least 3 or 4 letters in a week so that we're going more quickly. Then I move on to the letters C, T, M, and L, H, N, I, and R, P, U, J, and S, F, B, K, and E, W, V, X, and Z. Then we have Y, and last is QU, because Q is always followed by U in English words, so we actually teach them together. Q is not by itself, and we need to talk about how when U is next to Q, it's no longer acting as a vowel. So that's the order that I prefer. There is also a different order that I like if I'm teaching digraphs at the same time as I'm teaching the alphabet. If I'm teaching preschool or pre-K, I'm just going to stick with this order with the 26 letters. But if I'm teaching kindergarten, I am going to incorporate digraphs sooner because they're ready for digraphs a little bit sooner. So I do have an order for that as well. I will link that video down below because I did a video all about that order so you can see how it incorporates the digraphs before we get through all 26 letters of the alphabet. So that's an option for you as well. I'm going to briefly mention one more thing, but I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by it. This is only for people who are interested. I do have a free resource that dives deeper into the differences between consonants and vowels, and it will give you more information about the different groupings we have of consonants and the different groupings we have of vowels. This is not something that I'm going to be teaching my preschooler or my pre-Ker or even in kindergarten. We don't talk a ton about this, but it's more for you if you're interested. If you want to go to the next level of learning about letters and sounds, this would be for you. This is a freebie, and it will show you all of the different types of consonant phonemes that we have. So we have stops, we have fricatives, which are also called continuants, affricates, nasals, glides, and liquids. And then for the vowels, it shows you all of the different vowel sounds. We have 15 vowel sounds. We have 2 diphthongs, so it tells you about what those are. 3 are controlled vowels, and then our schwa sound. Because I mentioned we have 44 phonemes in English, but only 26 letters. So if you want to dive deeper into those phonemes and get a little bit of a deeper education on the science of reading and what these letters mean, you can go ahead and get this freebie. I'm going to link it down below. It's my consonants and vowels freebie. It's not necessary to teach your child. It's not even necessary for you to know all of this information, but it is there in case you're interested, in case you want to dive deeper. Are you ready for your homework? At the end of each of these episodes, I am giving you homework so that you have some actionable steps that you can take in order to implement this information with your child who's learning how to read. Because it's one thing to just listen to this information and think, oh yeah, that's a good idea. But if you don't take action on it, it's not going to help your child become a stronger reader. So here is your homework. You are going to go to the link down below and you are going to download the free animal alphabet cards that I have. Now I showed you earlier what they look like. This is letter A with our alligator, but I also have in that download the card with the little animal in the corner and also the card with no animal. And the reason that I include all 3 of these levels is because you can use them for different purposes. If you are practicing and making sure your child knows their names and sounds without any picture keywords, you can just use the plain one. Or if you're really practicing on having your child do the motion for the alligator, you might want to use the bigger picture. Or if they just need a little reminder of the animal when they're practicing the name and sound, you can use the little picture. It's totally up to you. That's the nice part. But I have all 26 letters of the alphabet in this free download. I also have the digraphs, so if your child is ready to learn the 2 letters that represent one sound, digraphs, that you can practice those in there as well. So your homework is to download the cards, and then I want you to use them every day this week in a fun game. So that is up to you. What is your child interested in? You could tape them around the house and make a scavenger hunt. You could put them on the ground, play some music, have your child dance from letter to letter, and then stop the music, and whatever card they're standing on, they have to pick it up and tell you the name and the sound of that card. You could take these cards and you could put them inside of a sensory bin. So your child has to dig and dig, and when they find the card, they pull it out and tell you the name and sound. You could get some Play-Doh and have them use Play-Doh to form the letters, and they could just put the Play-Doh right on these cards to form the letters. It's up to you. But try every day this week to get out the cards at least for a couple minutes and do one fun game or activity with your child. You can choose if your child knows some letters and sounds they're confident with, and maybe some letters and sounds that they're still learning. Or if they already know all of them, maybe they're ready to start practicing those digraphs and learning the digraphs. It's up to you. It's flexible, but it is your homework. And when you've done it, I want you to come back here and comment down below and tell me how it went. I hope this information was helpful for you today. If you haven't yet, please make sure you download your freebie, the 5 Steps for Reading Success. You can see that we were right here on letter knowledge, and it gives you more information down here, links to helpful videos, and also freebies that will be helpful on your journey of teaching your child to read. If you have any questions about this or anything else I share on my channel, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can comment down below, or you can find me on my website, littleslovelearning.com. I'm also super active on social media, so please reach out on Instagram or Facebook at Littles Love Learning Blog, and I would be happy to help you and support you on your journey of teaching your child to read. Until next time, happy learning. Bye.